Hello and welcome to episode 17 of our second series, powered by Netball UK. Now, as we approach the end of lockdown, we're giving every listener and viewer the chance to get 10% off at the leading online netball shop, Netball UK. Plus, if you use the code with an order before the end of July, one lucky winner will get the entire cost of their order refunded. Save now and you could get your order on us. Now, the only way to get the code is to head over to mynetballnation.com, click the banner on our homepage, and there you will find your code. Very good discount this, but also the chance of a very cool prize if you win all of your shopping. Right then, I am joined as always by, live from the living rooms, which I know better than them now, by Mags and Sarah. Hello girls, how are we?
Good, thank you.
First things first, before we delve into all things netball, Mags,
Yes.
what's on the baking agenda today?
Well, yesterday I made Oreo cookie bars.
Oh, Mags. And hang on, what was it that you sent? Because we've got a Netball Nation WhatsApp group, and you sent something that looked an absolute taste sensation last week. Not the fudge, the other one.
Cookie thing.
That was it.
Yeah.
Oh.
So it's like a cookie dough base with like the toffee from the, like a Millionaire's, and then the chocolate on the top.
It was ridiculous. And do you know what? Myself and Sarah have got a request because I remembered the other day. Do you remember gold bars, the little gold biscuits you used to get in your lunchbox?
Yeah.
Mags, they are absolutely beautiful. Aren't they? Sarah, 10 out of 10 chocolate biscuit, that.
Yeah.
Do you reckon you could incorporate them into a cookie, biscuit, some kind of cake
type thing?
For our return to Netball Nation.
Leave that one with me. So you want cookie dough in the middle with chocolate all the way around it. I don't know, the gold bar thing, was it a bit like what's it?
Caramac on the outside.
Caramac.
Yes. Yeah. It was, I don't know how they did that with
I'll
the
practice,
chocolate.
I'll have a go.
Cheap stores always have them like 10 for £1.
Yeah.
I'll have a go. I'll practice that one. Start practicing.
Get in. Thanks, Mags. I'm sure everyone listening to this right now is excited by that as well. We'll tell you what they taste like.
Everyone's switched off.
Yeah. And Sarah, what have you been getting up to this week?
I mean, I can't really remember what day it is. I'm not sure where the week starts and ends.
We're recording this on Wednesday.
Yeah, great. Been doing some work. It was our last week of programming for Lightning, so we had a bit of a wrap up on Monday night, so that was good fun. And then just the usual. Yeah, one week rolls into another, doesn't it?
So you done now then, Sarah? Is it like your official summer break?
Kind of. So the girls are done from a physical point of view, but it's obviously kind of rolling into contracting time. So I'll try and get some time off soon, but it depends how we go contracting.
Is it busy time for you, Sarah? Well, thank you both, as always, for joining us. We have got plenty to crack on with. The ANZ in New Zealand is well and truly back now, and we'll be chatting about the results, making predictions, and also predicting our all-star Super Netball team ahead of their season starting in August. Hot weather and sport. Okay, the weather's taken a turn again, but when it's hot, it can be hard to stay cool and be motivated to still participate in sport. We're going to be chatting about tips to train in the heat and more. But first up, it's all about talking to this week's special guest, who's one of the faces of netball, international umpire Gary Burgess. I noticed you got an extra specially loud applause there from Sarah. She's feeling nervous.
Getting my work in early for next year.
Gary, thank you so much for joining us. We've talked to plenty of players and coaches as special guests for this series, but you are the first match official. So thank you very much for joining us. How have you found life without netball in lockdown, Gary?
Well, it's been a nightmare, really. This was going to be my season to have year to have a season off. So I picked the right year. But I think, like everybody, realises how much they miss netball when they can't do it. So I think we're all itching to get back.
Do you have any idea when that'll be that you're actually back officiating?
So unfortunately, I think umpires will be the last ones back, just by nature of the roadmap that England Netball and the government have got. So, I mean, there's modified training, netball fitness, then, actual gameplay will be the last thing to come back. So that's when umpires probably will be the last in. Obviously, if they can do fitness up to that point, but I think they'll be the last people. But it's all down to the government at the moment, and when social distancing is completely relaxed and all of that sort of thing.
And how do you feel about it all? I mean, obviously, it's inevitable. It can't be helped. But how do you feel about the situation?
Well, I'm kind of in a little bit of a strange world because I live in the middle of nowhere. I live in complete isolation. We live on a farm in Norfolk, so we don't have neighbours. So we kind of haven't really experienced any of it. So all of we dutifully go out on a Thursday to clap the NHS and can't hear anybody else. So the experience of that in a housing estate or in a city, we don't have that sort of thing. So we personally haven't had much issues, and I've worked remotely, continue to work remotely full time for England Netball since lockdown. So my life hasn't been that much of a change apart from having weekends.
Well, and also, I mean, the fact that if you are so remote anyway where you live, you must have had such little human interaction at all in life. Has that been bizarre for you?
Yes, I think my wife and children are sick of me because I'm very, very but no, it's great. I mean, I think we live on a farm with my wife's parents and brother and sister-in-law, so kind of we were always in a bubble, so our life didn't change too much. But as I say, I didn't venture to the main road for about 10 weeks, so it really was shopping would always come in and all of this sort of stuff, so we really didn't see anybody at all apart from the immediate family unit, so it was quite nice. But
Sarah, Max, how would you feel about living on a farm in the middle of nowhere with your in-laws?
So you spoiled it there when you put the in-laws.
I've got to be careful because Stacey will watch this.
You'd love it, wouldn't you, Sarah?
They'd probably get sick of me. I'd be like, fine. Everyone would want to go out. I'd be like, I'm good, I'm
going to stay here.
Yeah.
But I mean, Gary, you're pretty well known in international netball. Can you tell us, for anyone listening, how you got into the sport?
Yeah, so I was a hockey umpire to start with, so there was a lot of transferable skills there. But when I was at college, at teaching college, we were told to go out and bolster our CVs with experiences in loads of other female sports to make yourself more employable as a male PE teacher. And netball was one of the things that I went on. And on that course, I met a lady called Sheila Redpath, who people will know as a bit of a lady.
Oh, legend.
Our sport. She still continues to be involved now after 50 years involved, but she basically ignited the passion in me then and said, you have aspirations to represent your country as a player, you could actually do it as an umpire as well. And it kind of was that sort of fast forward and kickstart from that point on that pushed me into the sport and allowed me to be where I am. I mean, she's still my mentor 20 years later.
Wow.
So, yeah, she's still someone that I confide in now about my skills and experiences.
And we'll touch on that a little more in a second. But, becoming an umpire, what would you say to anyone listening to this who thinks, oh, do you know what, I'd love to do that, but I wouldn't even know where to start?
So, I mean, obviously at the moment it's a bit awkward because there's nothing on, but the England Netball website is normally a real hub of that, and there's a courses section. But you start locally. There's county and regional umpire secretaries that work tireless around the country. So find out who your local umpire secretary is, and they'll be the ones that will get you all the information that you would need. And they're the ones really on the ground and at grassroots that will stoke that passion and that fire of officiating locally. So those are the people that you need to speak to.
Gary,
go on, Sarah.
We spoke a little bit about coaching, and there's not a lot of male coaches out there. It's growing in numbers, but umpiring's always been fairly represented with men. Why do you think that is? Like, who's done the good work there in terms of getting men into umpiring?
Well, I think, it wasn't too long ago since, I think it was about 1996, where the INF didn't have any male umpires. I don't know whether or not it was a policy or not, but Bill Alexander back in the day was the first male international umpire across the world. But I genuinely believe that England Netball's, long before I became to post, England Netball's, they never had a segregation policy or anything like that said men couldn't do it. The doors have always been open. And certainly since I've been in post and inherited it from Don Blacklock, but then Sheila Redpath for the majority, she did the job for 30 years. It was always, you were promoted on your ability, not by what you looked like. It was just, if you were good at umpiring, it didn't matter if you were a man or a woman, you'd be pushed forward. So,
And can I ask you then, Gary, how were you received by the actual athletes? you know, right back at the beginning of all this, when you're starting to rise through the ranks and, you know, you're hitting, you know, the big games, how were you received by the athletes?
Well, I mean, I'd love to tell you that it was difficult and that, you know, it was a bad situation, but it absolutely wasn't. I've got no negativity from you know, the upper end fraternity. And I think that's about being personable and having empathy and just, you know, doing your best. If you go out there and try and do your best, people will be accepting of you. But I absolutely have never experienced any sort of sexism or anything like that since I've been doing what I've been doing. I remember going into England training camps 20 years ago and Bayman was still playing, you know, and you know, it was just what we did. You know, you went in there and you did your best and you did your job. You wouldn't always get things right, but actually, if you were honest, you'd be fine. I mean, there was a couple of situations when I was still teaching that I'd turn up to school matches and there would be those old PE teachers that we all can imagine. They were like that. A man in netball, do you even have a beginner award? You know, I'd umpire the World Cup final by the time that I was doing that, you know, and yeah, I have a beginner award.
How do you respond to that, though? I mean, on the odd occasion, it's great to hear, by the way, that is like so rare in your situation. But how did you respond to that? How did you take that?
I mean, I think people that know me well enough know that I'm a fan of so. You know, there's been the PE teacher that said to me, you know, do you even know what you're doing? Have you got a beginner award? I just quite happily said, yes, I have a beginner award. I have 5 after that as well, but I have a beginner award. The kids that I used to teach were always like that, cracking up in the minibus back to school, sort of saying, oh, yeah, you got by the World Cup finals there. She didn't even know that, you know, but you know, you just take it in your stride.
Do you ever get nervous before a game, or have you ever got nervous? Do you remember a moment in your career of getting nervous?
Yeah, I mean, every game you get nervous before every game, and I think it's one of the first people that I worked with in Bedfordshire, Gloria Keach, said to me, she said, if you ever stop getting nervous, you need to stop because it means you don't care anymore. And I think it's about how you turn that nervous energy into, you know, productive energy and how you can convert that into a great performance. I think you can do a lot yourself, knowing the rules inside out. So when you apply a rule, you know 100% you're right. So if any challenge comes, you know, you're equipped to then deal with it. But yeah, I still get nervous. Yeah.
And you know, a lot of people listening will be thinking like, what a great job you've got. But what are the toughest parts of it, Gary?
Well, I think I'll stop you on the first step. A job is something you get paid for. I think the biggest surprise that a lot of people will find out is that Super League and international umpires don't get paid. That's something that we're looking to address over the next 10 years in the new strategy, in the netball strategy about professionalising officiating to come in line with the new game, you know, this new outstanding product that we've got. You've got to get the umpires on the same page and look at that. But yeah, it's interesting. It is a tough role to have, and a lot of responsibility comes with it.
And have you ever made an umpire call that you weren't confident with, or you've looked back afterwards and gone, oh, that was probably a mistake?
I think absolutely. At the time, you have to be 100% confident. So I'm 100% confident in my incorrect decisions than I am at the time of my correct decisions, because both are made with as much information you have at the time to make that decision. You never guess. So you make the decision based on what you've got there and then. But obviously in review, I mean, the average umpire at my level spends about 4 hours reviewing the game, looking at every decision. So, you know, off the back of the Netball World Cup final in Liverpool, I can tell you now I made 178 decisions and 2 of them were incorrect. But 2 of them were incorrect, not because they were clangers or massive, you know, mistakes, but they were situations where I played advantage, where I should have penalised, or vice versa. So I think, you know, when you get to this level, you know, you do come out of games actually not making a huge amount of mistakes, and that does show. One of the other things with the Netball World Cup final, because it was such a spectacle, a lot of the decisions that I made went with play, and when that happens, the umpire really does become unobtrusive and not noticeable in the game, because play is always going the right direction. It's when you have those big attacking turnovers or turnovers that send the ball the other way that people start recognising or noticing the umpire more.
There's a lot of pressure on you in that role, though. I mean, you've umpired at several major tournaments. If you had to pick out a favourite, Gary, what would it be?
Some major tournaments, probably. I think the first one I went to, I got my international award in 2009, and then in the Cook Islands at the World Youth, and then found myself the following year at the Commonwealth Games in Delhi. For people that will remember, that was a world record game because it went to Bailey. You played in that series, didn't you? You were there.
Yeah.
So it was the game went to extra time, which is two. So you've got your 15 minutes. You've got your 2 periods of 7.5, and then it went to sudden death, and it went on for another 13 minutes after that, and it just goal for goal, goal for goal. And it was probably one of the biggest. It was definitely a world record game, but it was one of the biggest spectacles for netball, I think, of all time.
Amazing. And Gary, I want to get your insight and opinion on some things while we've got you as well, because rule changes are part of the game, but the introduction of the super shot in Australia has caused some fierce debate and very strong opinion. What are your thoughts on it? And can you think of any that have come in that you've agreed with, or that you've gone, no, that probably shouldn't have been made?
Well, I think like everybody, I think when you make rules changes, you've got to do it with consultation. It shouldn't be a surprise. Absolutely shouldn't be a surprise. And I think that's where a lot of the angst and annoyance has come from this decision being made. Innovation in our sport is one of the things that keeps it developing. But probably about 10 years ago, the INF created Fast Net and Fast 5 for this reason, because they wanted to safeguard netball as a traditional format of the game. I'm a strong believer in that format of the game. Absolutely is marketable enough to be an Olympic sport right now in its current version, without any tweaks, changes, or that sort of thing. So I think, as I say, consultation would have been the thing. But I think for me, if I look at it in a one-dimensional way, just those very small changes have a massive impact on the way in which umpires prepare for a game. So by having a 2-point shot, the position and timing of an umpire will change. The behaviour of players will change. So there might be some deliberate contacts under the post to force it to be positioned there, or on the circle edge. Likewise, if you're saying that this super shot's happening in the last 5 minutes of a quarter, there could be some deliberate delays by players to take a penalty in a certain time, but they might amble a little bit to take that penalty so it clicks into the super shot time. Players might delay the ball coming back. So there's a lot of other things to think about. Now that's in that version. You then expect umpires to switch from that version into an international version or a different version. That's where there could be that scope to change. And again, it's the same issue for players. Players and umpires work on autonomous phase of learning, so they do it automatically without thinking. If you start interrupting that could then have an impact on how they autonomously play in a different version and in a different environment. So it's too much, for me, it's too much change too quickly without too much thought.
Yeah, and I think as well, that was really insightful as well, Gary, because it's interesting to hear it from your point of view, because a lot of people think about how that might affect the players, but not necessarily how a game is umpired as well. And another thing we spoke about on the podcast last week was technology, the use of technology in netball. Would you like to see technology similar to Hawkeye or VAR brought into netball? Do you think it would be beneficial?
I think, I'm all for development. I think if we're going to use technology, it needs to be used more off court. So with umpire analysis to support them developing. But actually, do I think that there's a VAR and Hawkeye in game? No, I don't, because I think netball's too fast. And again, even football, 90 minutes, not many goals. Because of the frequency of the goals and the speed of the game, I think it would interrupt the flow too much to go in there. And the skill of an umpire is to make a finite decision with the information that they've been given, or to play a fantastic advantage that enhances the game. They're two of the key principles. If you start interrupting it with, was it this, was it that, was it the other, then I just think it becomes a bit of a nightmare. However, talking of nightmares, I do have this kind of recurrent nightmare that I'm umpiring the final of a big tournament. And in the rules, the ball has to go wholly through the ring the ball has to go wholly through the ring for it to count. And I just have this recurring nightmare that it's the final of a big championships and the decision comes down to that. And I didn't look if the ball was wholly through. Now that's probably the only time I would just say, hold time. Can we just check that was?
Gary, can we just change that stupid rule though? Because like, how long's a net? Like, the nets are like pretty standard length, but then how good does your vision have to be to see if the ball's wholly through? If it's not, as long like, I just want that rule changed. Just if the shot's up, it counts. If the shot's not up, it doesn't count. Surely that's going to be a little bit easier for umpires.
You know what, Bayman, we'll both get shot for this, but I think the basketball thing where it's left your hand.
Yeah.
It may well be the easiest way to deal with that, but again, the rule is as the rule is at the moment. So yeah.
What I want to know, Gary, is how frequently you're having this nightmare.
And not very often, but it is a recurrent one. Cold sweats.
COVID dreams.
COVID dreams. You mentioned as well the skill of the umpire when you were chatting about it there. There was an umpiring review in the ANZ last weekend, Paulsby missed it, that we know you're very keen to chat about.
Yeah, so I just think it's a hot topic. I mean, I woke up. I didn't wake up. Sorry, I was working because it was an 8 o'clock game, I think, and my phone just started going wild. And it was about an umpire appealing to their co-umpire, and everyone was like, "Oh, I've never seen this before. Isn't it fantastic? Can you do it? Can you not do it?" And I think the important thing to say is it actually isn't the new thing. It's been in the rule book for a while. But the reason it's in the rule book initially, so an umpire is 5.2.13.
Oh my word!
In fact, that's the only rule in the rule book that I know, because the first part says the decision of the umpire is final and given without question. So that's the only reason I know. But basically, it was designed to support umpires if such a thing should happen, is that they got duffed over by a player and lost vision, or if they fell over. That doesn't happen very often, but it seems to happen to me more than it.
Nobody was going to mention that, Gary.
I've got to get in there first. But it was there to actually allow umpires to ask their co-umpire what happened. It wasn't really there to kind of appeal across those lines. But again, I think with anything, as I said, great umpiring is about being in the right place at the right time. Now, a good skill of the umpire is to make sure that that's done a majority of the time. But ultimately, if it happens that you become unsighted, completely unsighted in a one-off, and I've never umpired this in 20 years of umpiring, I've never done this. And I've only ever seen it done twice, this occasion and once before. It has to be, it is an option, but it shouldn't be your first consideration. Your first consideration should be being in the right place at the right time. There's another part of the rule in game management as well, that umpires can support each other, but it has to be, the appeal has to come from the controlling umpire. Then there is a part in game management. So let's say, for instance, if you miss something really big that would result in a warning, an order off, or a suspension or an order off, there is an option in the rule. I think that's, I know I've written it down here, 13.15, that actually you can go and offer your support to the co-umpire, and it might be a situation that missed a deliberate trip or a punch or something really high level. You go over and say, "Did you see this? This is what I saw," and then you leave your co-umpire to make the final decision. But it's still very much so that you can only make decisions in your area of the court.
We were discussing this last week, Gary, when I think it was something that I'd mentioned about maybe not enough use of the umpire that doesn't have control of the game, because Sarah had mentioned about maybe looking at the game retrospectively, maybe bringing in some sanctions if you spot things after the fact. And because we were saying that some players could use that to their advantage, the odd dig, the punch, the in the face sort of stuff that's not happening within the controlling umpires end. So I kind of like that rule, and I just think that maybe it should be used more often.
I don't disagree with you, Maggie. I think this idea of some sort of citing, I mean, I always tell people I'm an expert in the rules. When it comes to regulations, I don't even go there because they change so often. But I think this idea of citing absolutely needs to be looked at with regards to regulation. So a team might see something after a game, or it's a bit like spitting in football, and all of that sort of stuff. Those sorts of things get submitted after the match and are dealt with. But going back to what you said about having it used more, I talked to my inner circle about this, and we're actually all of the opinion that it did happen, but in a kind of subliminal way. So there would always be situations, not open, like whole time appeal, what's going on, I was talking to Jackie Misen about it, and we always used to umpire quite telepathically. So it's literally even a turn of the shoulders, if you look over, would give that indication of where something's going. If the co-umpire was pointing down the other end of the court, you'd know that the throwing was going the right way, or so on and so forth. So there is that subliminal thing, and just because it wasn't a grandiose kind of interruption to the game doesn't mean to say that there isn't that there isn't that communication between the umpires that goes under the radar. A little finger pointing down either way might be the thing that gives the tip across the court.
Yeah, I was going to say, because I mean, I think it's good if it's used a little bit more, but it is like, I watched the Mystics Pulse game, and it does draw attention to it if you're basically holding time going, like, can you tell me what happened? And if you're that other umpire and you didn't see, you'd be like, oh God, no. So, you know what I mean? Like, it's quite obvious.
Yeah.
Whereas what you're saying is, like, if you kind of look over and they're like, oh, throw-ins that way, then great, because I think, the more backup you can get, especially, when you're looking at something that's on the opposite sideline, is pretty tough.
I mean, I'll throw a question to you, Sarah, and say to you, there have been some instances when umpires have said, hands up, it's an umpire error, it's the other way. Now, that's a double-edged sword, really, isn't it? Does that show an umpire being human and admitting their mistake, or does it actually then put doubt in players' and coaches' mind that the umpire doesn't know what they're doing and isn't decisive enough?
Yeah, I think there was one of those in the ANZ this week as well, and I'm not even sure if they played an advantage and then called it back, but I just remember them saying umpire error, and it is an interesting question, but I think personally I'd rather umpires went, yeah, I got it wrong and I've spotted it quick enough that I can rectify it, than just almost stubbornly carry on, even when you know it's wrong.
Well, Gary, I think we all feel like we're part of the inner circle now. I think that was a great insight.
Mate, the umpires are not taking me into their inner circle ever.
I was going to say, you just looked nervous for the entirety of that, Sarah. Now, before we do let you go, Gary, it's not just umpiring that you've been recognised for during lockdown. You've become a little bit of a singing sensation, haven't you?
Yeah.
We can see a keyboard there in the background for anyone who isn't watching this on YouTube. And is that a fish tank as well? Has that got some fish in it?
Yeah.
Oh, nice. Do they have names?
But there's only one in there, unfortunately. Two of them fell foul to the lockdown, unfortunately.
Oh, no. God bless their souls. Well, Gary, do you fancy doing a little sing-song for us here on Netball Nation?
Don't be shy.
Come on, Gary! Yes! Oh, for anybody.
Plug it in his bon tempe.
Yes, Max. For anyone who's just listening on the podcast rather than viewing this, Gary has turned his swivel chair round. He's heading towards his keyboard. He's getting his chair hiked up so he's the right height. He's twiddling with his buttons. He's getting ready. We're ready when you are, Gary. Although we can't hear a thing. Oh, here he goes.
I'm sure you can edit this into something.
I'm sure we won't
Seamless.
need to. Do you need a big intro? Do you want us to intro what you're singing? Or, oh, here we go. No.
He's off.
It's a little bit funny. This feeling inside. I'm not one of those who can easily hide.
Yes, Gary.
I don't have much money, but if I did.
Come on, girls. Hands in the air.
Where's my phone with my light?
Yes.
There you go.
Oh, amazing. Gary, we wanted more. That was brilliant. Thank you so much. There you go. If you are listening right now, that was an exclusive live on Netball Nation. Gary Burgess, thank you so much for that.
Set the bar high now.
Yeah.
We're going to have a one-man band on next. You want to beat Gary?
Yeah. Sorry, you're going to do that.
No.
Gary, it's been an absolute privilege having you on and to have you welcome into your inner circle, except for Sarah. Thank you so much for joining us on Netball Nation. Take care, enjoy the farm, and we'll hopefully see you back in action soon.
No problem. Nice to talk to you guys.
Take care,
Thanks,
Gary.
Thanks,
Take
Gary.
care.
Thanks.
Bye-bye. Great singing. Bye, Gary. The British summer, it's either baking hot or blowing a gale. In fact, I think in one day this week, we've had, I don't know about you guys, but we had rain, hail, bright sunshine, rain, sunshine, rain.
We're just missing the snow, weren't we?
Yeah, that is literally it. It cannot make its mind up. Now, when it's hot, though, it's hard to know how to train and play safely. And heading indoors is not an option with netball still having to be played outdoors due to government guidelines. The same goes for playing in rainy and cold conditions. So, Mags, what tips for drills and training sessions do you have for young players in the intense heat to limit chances of overheating?
Well, I think the first thing you've got to do is be smart and be sensible. You know, if you're going to go out and you're going to do training, as they will, pick the cooler parts of the day. So either first thing in the morning, if you're able to, or later in the evening when it's a little bit cooler. Hydration is key. And as always, make sure you have something to eat, but not too soon before you're going to go and train. Give it a chance to settle. So you actually have the food in you for energy to do the training, and you're hydrated to get you through it.
Can I ask you both, girls, do you, depending on what time of year it is, do you train at different times of the day yourselves?
For me now, because I'm not actually hitting a court netball, and it's just wherever I can squeeze it in.
And what about you, Sarah?
I think I probably train more in the evenings in summer because it like light evenings. I like to train outside as much as I can. Like I like running and getting outside and doing stuff outside. So in winter, when that's not possible because you know you go to work in the dark, you go home in the dark.
Yeah.
That's when I hit the gym more and stuff. And then it doesn't really matter what time I train. I'll train in the mornings and whatever. But in the summer, I try and get outside as much as I can.
It's that feel-good factor as well, isn't it? Out in the fresh air.
Yeah, fresh air just makes you feel better, doesn't it? Like mental health-wise, I think it's good to just get some fresh air in.
Absolutely. Although I don't envy people when you see people running, and we've had like the days of like 29 degrees. Well, we had one day of that. I'm like, how are you possibly doing it? I'm struggling to walk. Like my thighs are rubbing together. I'm chafing everywhere. I'm like, how are you managing this? That is incredible.
What I like to do though is I didn't go out on those days, so you know this is a hypothetical situation. But what I like to do when it's really hot is pretend I'm like Mo Farah in an Olympics in a hot place.
There's your vision.
So I'm like, you know what? If Mo can get through Beijing heat, you know, he must have been having these same thoughts as me that he's really hot and he wants to stop, but he didn't, did he? And so that's how I get through it.
Do you know what? There we have it. I feel like we can wrap this section up now. It's concluded with that motivational speech from Sarah. Thank you. But Sarah, you've travelled to some pretty hot destinations during your career. Have you ever picked up any tricks to stay cool and train in the heat from other teams?
Don't
or
do
just
it Mo. England here, we'll take any training time you give us. And
all joking aside,
they've given us the court from 12 till 2, and you're like, brilliant.
Sarah, you have just taken the words right out of my mouth. That was the training time. No shade.
12 till 2. No,
honestly.
They're training at like 7 in the morning or 8 at night. And so, yeah, I'd say don't train in the middle of the day. Like Mag said, be as hydrated as possible. Ice towels are always good if you're in real hot heat. Just put them on your neck. Try and cool down.
If you're only given 12 till 2 to train with the baking hot sun shining down on you, that is not good. How do you even cope with that? What do you do?
Well, it's just called home team advantage, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think teams fight back a bit more now. You know, the beginning of my career, we'd take anything. We'd be training at like 7 in the morning, you know, in winter, and then we'd go to the Caribbean and train in the middle of the day. Whereas now, I think teams are a little bit fairer on each other, and also teams kind of negotiate a bit more.
Yeah, I mean, you both said as well that you prefer training and doing your exercise outdoors. Do you have a preference on playing indoors or outdoors?
I think the indoor thing, I mean, is a fancy new phenomenon, because back in the day, everything was outside.
Yeah.
You know, come rain, shine, hail, force 9 blowing through. Who would ever want to be a shooter? Because they were still having to get those shots in all conditions. So ideally, if you've got the right conditions outside, it's beautiful, not too hot, you've got a little bit of shade, conditions are good. It's fabulous being outside.
So basically, don't do it in England.
Yeah.
Well, have you ever heard sort of overseas players complain when they're struggling to maybe acclimatise to the English weather?
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
All the time.
What is their biggest complaint with that?
That it's cold.
and honestly, they layer up. They've got the leggings on, they've got joggers on, they've got long sleeve tops on.
Wow.
The only thing they're missing is hat and gloves.
Well, I think the problem with our winter as well, England will often play test series in November, December time and January time. You're talking depths of winter. And the problem with our winter is it's not just cold, but it's wet. So you'll get those days where it's just grey, miserable, raining a bit, it's still cold. And from a netballer's perspective, I mean, it's not as bad because you're indoors, but it still does take, longer to warm up and kind of get going in the mornings, especially. So, yeah, I don't think a lot of teams enjoy coming here in the winter.
It'd be lovely for all of us, wouldn't it, if England could just provide us with some sort of mid-range, not too hot, not too cold, no wind, for everyone to train in. Wouldn't that be, just to live in? That'd be lovely, wouldn't it?
Well, maybe so, but I mean, we've just been talking about going to the Caribbean or the West Indies, and they're giving us that training slot outside, sunshine, baking hot at 12. Do you think that maybe subliminally we're doing the same to them by playing our test series as in November, December, January, when it's cold, wet and windy?
Yeah,
I remember playing Jamaica, and I don't know if we were in Sheffield or somewhere, and it was sleeting, horizontal sleet, and I've never seen a team look so unimpressed to me. What have you brought us to?
Yeah.
I'm sure they enjoyed it all the same. Now,
oh yeah, sure.
I feel like this has been the most British part of a podcast we've ever done.
Talking about the weather endlessly.
For the last 10 minutes, we've covered all angles. But before we move on, we've got to mention that the Premier League results were confirmed this week, with Oldham winning an 8th title out of the last 9. YWCA won Premier 2 and are promoted, while Charnwood won Prem 3. Sarah and Mags, what are your thoughts on those results?
Well, first thing I'm going to say is if the suggestion is that anything north of Watford is north, then it's a massive hats off and congratulations to 3 northern teams, 2 coming from the Manchester area, and Oldham consistently performing year in, year out. It's amazing. And I think the Charnwood girls, did they feed into you, Sarah, as well?
Yeah, I was going to say from a Loughborough perspective, it's nice to see Charnwood doing well, because that's a Loughborough club. So kind of getting up the leagues is great for the region. And me and Max were just talking. I think at the minute playoffs is still scheduled to happen, although I'm not sure when that kind of gets canned. But if playoffs happen, that'll sort of decide relegation and things like that. But I'm not sure if it'll happen or not. And a few clubs, you included, Mags, on tenterhooks to see what goes on there.
It's the playoff. I mean, ideally for clubs like myself, because we're at that bottom end of the Prem 1, and it's that last fighting chance to stay up in Prem 1. And I think we've been there a few times, and playoffs always seem to work out in our favour. But if they don't have those playoffs, it's looking like the bottom 2 will just drop down a division.
Do you have any idea when those decisions are going to be made?
It's sometime mid-July, and it's not just that. There are a couple of other competitions that are scheduled into the netball calendar before the end of this season concludes, before September. But critical dates as to what the government are going to say about teams getting back together and playing.
And it'd be interesting because, national clubs for the juniors and there's a national schools, isn't there?
For the 15s,
meant to be happening. It'll be interesting to see if those happen, because they might almost be the first competitive netball back, and a little bit of a trial, if they do happen, of how tournament netball can be run. So fingers crossed they do happen, but we'll see.
I mean, the national clubs, the 14s and 16s, I mean, they have the last 2 weekends in August as the dates to play those competitions. So I know we've got quite a few weeks before that happens. Things are changing on a daily basis. And personally, you know, it's for the 16s that are then going to be moving up into adult netball, it would be lovely for them to play that competition out before moving up as adults at 16.
Yeah, and fingers crossed for you, Mags, as well for playoffs. So we'll keep our eyes and ears peeled for that. Right then, let's talk ANZ. There were 4 very close games this week in ANZ. It's proven to be a league of fine margins, with a cross-court defence playing a key part in teams grinding out results. So, should we break down each of the results, girls?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's have a look, because at the minute, as it stands, it's 3-1 to Sarah based on last week's results going into this. I know you probably both already know where you stand with this because you'll remember what you said, but let's just have a run through. So, Mags, you predicted tactics. Sarah, you predicted magic. It was tactics 45, magic 36. Well done, Mags. Well done.
I got a bit excited midway because I think Magic were up at half time, and I was like, "Oh my god!" And I'm actually turning into Mystic Meg, like I predicted an upset, and then it went awry in the second half.
Well, you both did well with the Mystic Steel game, 46-42. You both got that right, so well done. You got your crystal ball back out there. Right, Mags, you said Stars. Sarah, you went with Steel. Again, Sarah, you got your crystal ball out. It was 49-47.
What a game.
It was good, yeah.
Finally, you both went with Pulse, and it was Pulse 42, Mystics 35. So if we do the maths on that, I think, does that make it about 6-4 or 6-3?
5-3. Your quick maths is terrible, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely dreadful. Absolutely dreadful. 5-3 are we going?
Yeah, that sounds good.
That's, to be fair, Mags, that works more in your favour. Yeah, 5-3, well done. For you then, girls, what was your highlight game, and which game disappointed you?
Personally, I don't think I was disappointed really with any of the games. You know, there were forwards and backwards, nip and tuck, couple of points adrift, catching up, and you know, standout games for me was definitely the Pulse and Mystics and the Stars and Steel. Both of those games I thought were awesome.
Sarah, what about you?
Yeah, agreed. Like, I think everyone was excited for the Pulse Mystics game because they both went in unbeaten and probably the 2 best teams in the competition, and it lived up to expectations. You know, I think Pulse won by 7 in the end, but it was the last 5 minutes that they won it in. Yeah. So that was a good game. I was probably a little bit disappointed with the Tactics Magic game. Just not great quality netball. You know, it was relatively tight, but I think both teams will be a little bit disappointed with what they put out.
And are there any younger players for you, Mags, that are standouts so far in this league?
Do you know what? Having watched the league, I'm thinking how excited the powers that be at New Zealand Netball must be with this swell of youngsters that are coming through and that are actually playing within the ANZ league at the moment. There's the 3 youngsters that are playing for Mystics, and they're all the shooters. So you've got Grace and Recca, and you've got Saviour Tui, that I think are just little superstars. And then you've also got Taylor Earl, awesome little centre. And then you've got your shooters, Aaliyah to Pulse, and Maddie Gordon. What a player she is, that little wing attack, Maddie Gordon. And who else? Maia Wilson. I know she's not classed as a baby, but she's still only quite young.
I know, but this is it. Like, we're talking about young players. Maia Wilson's, 22?
Yeah, she's still young.
She's still young.
But the way that girl works a circle and her finish, you know, she's really putting her stake in the ground and telling Nolene, you know, I've had a little taste of this and I want a little bit more. And I think deservedly so. And then obviously you move across to tactics, and you've got Charlotte Ellie. I thought she's having a good season so far, and Kamiara Poi. So, you know, you could go through every single team, and they've all really drafted well and got some fabulous youngsters across the court that are standing up and stepping up.
I hate to throw this question to you, Sarah, because we're all about the positivity, but do you think, are there any more experienced players that maybe aren't stepping up to the mark as much as you'd expect them to?
I mean, it's hard to say, really, because I think the games have been tight. So there's not one team where, you know, they're getting annihilated. I was pleased to see Steel get their first win, because I think Steel are a team that will just consistently grind performances out, and players like Gina Crampton a lot more pressure's been put on her this year because Steel have lost to Pia Selby-Rickett. A couple of years ago, they had Janelle Fowler. They've kind of lost a lot of firepower. And so now the pressure's on Gina Crampton and Shannon Francois. And I don't think they're underperforming by any means, but it's definitely a learning curve of bedding in new players and kind of going through a transition year a little bit for Steel. So I still think they're doing a decent job. I don't like I said, I don't think there's players massively underperforming, but I think there's a lot of senior players in that league that will be nervously looking at these youngsters thinking, geez, like I'm going to have to play well to keep my spot. And that's just the reality of the league at the minute. And, you know, Storm Purvis and Kate Burley at Stars, I think, are doing a decent job, but you've just got so many, like I said, so many good youngsters coming through. And you look at Pulse on Monday, they didn't quite like what the shooting circle was doing. They put Tiana Matura on there, and she just absolutely nails it. She sat on a bench for the last year, and she comes on and basically saves the day. So again, she's 19, something like that. So it's impressive at the minute.
Surely it's healthy anyway to even for them to be looking over their shoulder and seeing the competition.
Yeah, it's healthy because that's what all coaches want in their squad, competition for places. If everyone knows the 7 that's going to start every week and they're going to play the whole game, then people get complacent and get a little bit lazy and sloppy. I think what you're seeing at a few clubs in particular over there is people fighting and scrapping hard for places, and Nolene Todero will be happy to see that the mentality of those Kiwi players fighting for their place is really pleasing.
Absolutely. Right then, girls, let's get your predictions. Get that crystal ball back out, Sarah. We're going in. First up, Mystics v Tactics. Over to you, Mags.
Oh, do you know what? I've gone Tactics for that one.
Okay. Oh, Sarah. What are you saying?
I'm saying Mystics. Okay. Yeah, I'm enjoying what Mystics are putting out. I felt like against Pulse, they were in danger of getting blown away in the beginning, and they just, for a young team, they just clung on in there and came back at them. So yeah, I'm going Mystics.
Right, Sarah's going Mystics, Mags going Tactics. Next up, Pulse v Steel, Mags.
I think you'd be foolish to bet against Pulse, even though they were pushed to the max in the last game. I think they'll go away, they'll do their homework, and they will come out fighting like they did in the round 2 games. So I'm going Pulse.
Do you agree with that, Sarah?
Yeah, I'm going to go Pulse. Like I said, I like Steel because they're like a real gritty, solid team. Like they don't often have a bad week, but I don't think they'll have enough to get over Pulse.
So you're agreeing on that one. Let's see if you agree on this one. Pulse v Magic.
It's for the same reasons, Pulse again, for as much as, there's individuals within the Magic setup that I think are awesome, but I don't think they've got enough in the back pocket to take on Pulse at the moment.
Do you agree with that, Sarah?
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
And it's tough because Pulse will go back-to-back this weekend, back-to-back games. But I think Magic are still finding their feet a little bit. They've got a lot of new players in there this year. And I don't think they've quite got enough for that one.
And they take on Stars as well. So Magic v Stars. Mags, who are you going with there?
I'm going Stars.
Sarah?
I think that's going to be a tough one. I might go Magic on this.
Yeah. Just to mix it up a bit.
Just to mix it up a bit. And Stars are very up and down at the minute. They do some great stuff. They do some ugly stuff. And I think if Magic can get a consistent game together, they might get that.
There we have it then. We'll check in on that and let you know who's in the lead after next week. Now, before we head off, we've had an Instagram comment that we just couldn't ignore, and because you can't have too many predictions in one show, can you? Jem Cottle wrote, is there any way that you guys would do a fantasy pick for the Suncorp like Laurie Geitz, Liz Ellis, Shani Layton? The writing's very small here. Shani Layton and Catherine Cox did. It was awesome. I would love to hear what you guys think and who you would pick. So, over to you, Mags and Sarah. You can work together on this.
All right, okay. So, which way do you want to go? Do you want to go from the back first then, Sarah? Go keeper.
Yeah, we'll go keeper first.
Go on.
Oh, go on. Well,
I'm going Jiva.
Are you going Jiva? Okay, well, I went Shamira.
Fair enough.
Okay, you can do them separately then if you like, girls, because I feel like...
Well, for different reasons.
Are we doing it for this year, or are we doing it like best ever?
This year.
Okay, this
Oh,
year.
bloody hell, Mags.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
Before they start playing again this year.
Right. Yeah, I'm still going to go Jiva.
Okay.
Like I think best keeper ever. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Goal defence?
Carla Pretorius.
Ditto.
Both agreeing on that one.
Yeah, it's tough to see
anybody else.
Better
Nobody else can do it. Yeah.
Wing defence?
Gabby Simpson.
Oh, well, this is why I asked if it was this year, because I picked Ash Basil, but she's obviously injured.
I've got Ash down here, but she's injured because she would be my ultimate all time.
All right, in that case, who will I go? I will probably go Jess Anstis from Fever.
Oh, okay.
I think she had a great year 2 years ago, and I think she's going to come good again. There's not a lot of people playing solely wing defence at the minute, which is interesting. You know, like Jamie Lee Price has been pushed forward from wing defence to centre at Giants. She'd also kind of get a nod, and I think Jess Anstis is one of the better ones around.
And what about centre then, Mags?
For me, there's only one centre, and that's Laura Langman.
Do you agree, Sarah?
Yeah, I mean, you can't be blasphemous and not pick Laura Langman in it. First rule of Netball Club.
Everybody wants Laura. Come on, if only.
And what about wing attack?
I've gone for Laura Sheringham because I just think she's just worked so hard. She reminds me, or her story reminds me so much of Nat Haythornthwaite, and it was a toss between the two. Work hard, keep in the sight of the coach, let the coach see that you're working hard. A few setbacks, but then she's punched through and she's getting the recognition she deserves. And she's pretty awesome in attack and feeding.
Good sell there, Mags. What about you? So are you bought in?
And I'm not buying it now. I'm going Liz Watson.
Okay.
Just because I think she's a wing attack that is underrated because she just goes about her job quite quietly, but is always up there in the league for centre pass receives, for feeds. She can pretty much do everything. She's got a great vision on her. She's a good feeder. She's available a lot for her team. She's a leader in that Vixens team. So yeah, wouldn't mind having her in my team.
And goal attack, Mags?
I'm going to do this as a duo because these two come as a pairing. And with the new rules coming in, with the 2-pointer in the last 5 minutes, there's very few of those Australian shooters can do this. But I know our Roses can do this, and both these girls, so that's Helen Housebay and Jo Harton, between them can take those long bombs. They can work that circle and work it well. So for me, that's my combo in the shooting end.
Your duo. What about you, Sarah?
Yeah, I have gone Jo Harton goal attack because I think as well as being one of the best goal attacks in the league, she's now Giants captain, great player to have on court, a leader in that team. But shooter, I'm going Janelle Fowler because she's just a machine. And actually, I've the only person I've seen be able to stop her is Jiva. Shamira had a decent go at it last year actually as well, but she's unplayable most of the time. So she gets my vote at shooter.
Well, there you go, Jem. There is your fantasy pick for the Sun Cup from Mags and Sarah. Thank you so much for that, girls. That's it for another show. As always, if there's anything you want us to cover in future episodes, just like Jem did, get in touch via social media or to hello@mynetballnation.com. Also, we need to tell you that we're going to be having a summer break after next week's show. Don't worry, we're going to be back in August to round off the ANZ and talk about the launch of Super Netball, though. Thank you so much for listening to Netball Nation, powered by Netball UK. And don't forget, we're giving every listener and viewer the chance to get 10% off at Netball UK. Plus, if you use the code with an order before the end of July, one lucky winner will get the entire cost of their order refunded. Save now and you could get your order on us. The only way to get the code is to head over to mynetballnation.com and click the banner on our homepage. Before I say goodbye, girls, any final shout-outs? I shouldn't have asked.
Do you know, I don't think I've got any this week. I don't think
Shout out to all the Liverpool fans.
Oh, yes,
Yes.
of course. Yes.
Congratulations.
Champions.
Congratulations.
Well done.
Yes. You've waited long enough for it. So, yeah, huge shout out to the Liverpool fans.
Rich coming from a Leeds fan, isn't it?
I know. I'm saying that. Please
is that
don't
the
bother,
time?
please. Yeah. Thank you, girls. It's been an absolute delight. Have a belting week and we'll see you next time.
Take care, guys. Bye.
This is Netball Nation.